So right now, right, he's saying that why don't they get an audit, right? And the thing is that I know Binance gets constant internal audits, right? Any major company of their kind gets internal audits. What's important is a proof of reserve audit. And that's what they got recently is a proof of reserve audit. Now, does that tell us everything? No. But I understand why they don't want to get a major public audit, right? And it's for the same reasons why when I initially had an audit of Animal Farm, for example. So we had an audit of Animal Farm done by Truth Seekers, and initially, Truth Seekers told us that we had an issue, and they suggested that we did something about this issue, and in reality, they didn't understand the system, and if we had done that, it would have created a bug in our system, and we had to spend like 2 days explaining to them the technology that we built because we're actually innovating. And when you're actually innovating, it's very hard to get a legitimate audit because you have to actually teach the auditors what you're doing in the first place. That's if you're actually innovating. And Binance is at the bleeding edge of crypto exchange. And as a centralized crypto exchange, they're at the cutting edge. And the last thing they want is for some public audit to be done from some company that doesn't understand them, that probably has its own incentives to make it look like there's all kinds of issues that they found, right? Because that backs up their own worth. So this is another reason why, for example, when I do audits, I have to talk to the auditors and tell them, look, guys, this is not an example for you to come try and list a million non-existent issues so you can justify your work, right? Because that's what they like to do. They like to say, we found 10 things here and 20 things here and 30 things here. And then you look at it and it's like, yes, this would be an issue if we set the system up in a completely different way, which is not at all relevant to the current issue that you're bringing up here. And it's impossible for that issue to affect us. And they'll say, oh, yes, that's true. That's why we made it low risk. And it's like, but it's no risk at all. You're just trying to justify your, justify the service that you're providing by making up a ton of non-issues so you could say that you addressed them and they were rectified or however they want to put it. And also, because they don't want to give up their full structure to one of these auditors who, when they're talking about Big Four auditors, they're talking about U.S. companies that work with U.S. regulators, and basically they would be inviting the vampire into their house, right? And just giving a foothold to potential regulation, right? If they were to basically expose the whole setup of their infrastructure, how all of their companies are set up, all of their geolocation, and just, a full audit is not what you would want to do. What is important is that they do a proof of reserve audit, which they have done, and that you don't trust them in the first place, right? So this is this is one of those things where all a full audit would do is give a foothold to regulators, would put them more at exposure to that kind of attack vector, and it would sorry, my audio just cut off. It would put them more at exposure to this kind of attack vector. Man, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about the auditor, like having those type of audits, like having them fully audit internally, their business structure and all of that.
I got it. Yeah. So not only would it open up the door to make regulating them easier, it also gives a false sense of security, right? Because we see that FTX just had a major audit literally months before their collapse. And these kinds of things give a false sense of security. And I've said it from basically day one that these audits are basically worthless. DeFi, centralized, these audits are worthless, right? What you either need to be able to see the code yourself and be able to understand the code, or have someone that you can actually trust that does not have their own incentives, that has your best interest at hand, that understands the code. Otherwise, it's just a false sense of security, and we don't need it. We don't care. What we need is proof of reserves, which they provided, and to understand that at any point, any centralized exchange could go down. You do not trust them. You do not promote them, and that's why it's so disgusting that guys like Meet Kevin, who were just promoting FTX 2 months ago and just promoting BlockFi like crazy 2 months ago, are now trying to criticize Binance and saying that Binance is running away from an audit when they were just promoting FTX, which had an audit that was absolutely worthless. And watch, you'll see not only this, a little bit later in the video, Kevin thinks that one of the major auditing companies is a blockchain. So he just has no idea what he's talking about. So one of the reasons why FTX and Binance split their relationship and FTX sold their position in Binance sold their position in FTX is because FTX was trying to push for Binance to meet certain regulatory thresholds. And Binance did not want to comply because they realized it put them at greater risk and added literally no security. And at the end of the day, we see who was right. FTX went the whole complying road, and it did no good to them. It did no good to their investors. At the end of the day, it's the investors who end up hurt. And Binance was smart and separated themselves from that situation. They're not falling for the people trying to push them to give some sort of false sense of security, which at the end of the day only makes the platform more vulnerable. They're doing the right thing, and they are staying as decentralized as possible and not, giving over all of their information that is not relevant